Good morning, my brother and sister in Christ. The Lord be with you, also with you. I believe that we are still in the midst of Chinese New Year celebration. Of course, since Christmas until now, I gained some weight. I think around 4 to 5 kilo only. So after Chinese New Year, I need to cut down my weight because I've been eating non-stop. Slowing down now, but I gained some weight. Now, so in this Chinese New Year, I also see a lot of new things and funny things through social media and also Facebook and Insta. And one of them is that, nowadays, before pandemic, we are so used to a physical ang pao, right? So the young people will go to houses and get their ang pao from the uncle, auntie, 恭喜发财, or Happy New Year or Happy Chinese New Year. But nowadays, the trend changed. How? The young people can get an ang pao from you without even visiting you. So what they do is, what they did through the Insta or social media is that they share their QR code. You know QR code, right? The Boost QR code. And they will say to you, thank you for all your ang pao. You can give your ang pao here. Just scan the code and send the money to me without visiting you. So there are a lot of young people nowadays, they are doing this kind of sharing. I also received quite a number of QR code through my WhatsApp. Hi, Pastor, this is my QR code. Remember to send me ang pao. Not like last time. You have to go to the houses, visit them. You know what I would think that when you go to open house during Chinese New Year, sometimes you only know one person in that group, but the rest you don't know. Why? Because they are coming here for the ang pao. So after they say that 恭喜发财 or Happy New Year, of course they will receive the ang pao. Some even funny is that some young people, they will go and check how much they receive. Now, last time I knew one youth. You know what he did when he received a 2 ringgit ang pao? He will stay there for hours and eat up all your snack, just to make up the losses, okay? Because they have to come all the way their time, so they sit down and drink. Now, of course, during Chinese New Year, a lot of people, of course, Chinese people love to what? Gamble. You go to houses, some of the houses, of course, gamble. Of course, most of our Christian, we don't. But if you look through social media, I noticed that nowadays the young people, they don't care, right? They share. And I noticed that a lot of our young people in our church, they are Christian. Some of them, they are even worship, serve in the church. You know, what they share through their WhatsApp story only stay for 1 or 2 days only, after that it's gone. Or Insta story. You know what they share? They gamble. They gamble money. They're sitting down there, putting out their money and hoping to win big. It's all their Insta story or what kind. But if you look at the young people nowadays, when they go for house visitation during Chinese New Year, how many of them would say no to their friends? Oh, I don't want to gamble. How many of the young people would stand firm in their faith and say no to their friend? Oh, I don't gamble. Getting fewer and fewer. Of course, we cannot judge them because they are facing a tremendous pressure from the friends. Why? Because if they say no, they will be laughed by them. Oh, come on, don't be so holy, right? But if we don't take this scenario, let us put into another scenario. How about if you work in a place, right, in your workplace that maybe just you are the Christian, right? You are the only Christian. All the rest, they have other religions. But most of them, they like to drink or they love to do a lot of things that not in favor as a Christian. How do you say no to them? And how do you say no to your colleague? Or how do you say no to your classmate when they ask you to do something that you know is wrong and sin against God. Maybe for some of our students who just travel all the way from Kampong to university, UMS or UITM, or they're studying in colleges. Maybe you get to know a lot of friends, right? Maybe some of you are staying with them. Maybe they ask you to do something, right? Or things that you know is not right. How do you say no to them? It is not easy. It's not easy to say no when you are the only one that you know is wrong. Okay? Now, of course, if you go for a mission trip, you go together with a group of Christian friends. You go together with your church members. Of course, in a mission trip, you can stand firm and say to other people that I believe in Jesus, I will not sin against God. Right? Because you have a group of people. But how about those of you are alone, facing this kind of pressure by yourself, where people are looking at you. If you say no, then you are not one of us. Right? You know, during the pandemic, there was this cartoon. This cartoon, Out of Space. They got different colors. You only see a body shape with a glass on your face. One of us, or in our midst. If you are different, then you are an alien. Right? Because you are different. So maybe some of us, we try to be holy during Sunday, and during the weekdays, we try to mix with our friend. Okay? Or we go to pub, we go to karaoke. It's not easy. I've been through in that situation before, and I say no to who? To my supervisor and my boss, my branch manager. Because my branch manager, until now, he still likes to drink, likes to gamble, and likes to watch porno. You know porno, right? So every time, he will gather all of us together at his house. What we did in his house, we gamble. Of course, at first, I didn't say no. I'm still a young Christian. I didn't say no. I just followed them to do whatever they did. After a certain period of time, because during that time I also have some history with the church, that I left the church. And later on, after 1 year, I returned back to the church. Of course, I became a holy guy again. So I tell my manager, boss, sorry, I don't want. You know what he did? He still respect me as a Christian, but he still invite me to go to karaoke, to pub. So I went with him. You know what my boss did? He ordered beer and alcohol and one more drink, orange juice for me. And he said to the waiter that this boy is a holy boy. I still mix with them. I still go to his house, because during that time they will gamble until morning. So I was just sitting there the whole night, looking at them, chit chat, having this kind of fellowship with them. Until today, I met him recently. He asked me, "Hey, how are you?" I said, "I'm fine." So he asked me, "So you still work in the church?" I said, "Yes." Wow, good lah. Okay, we still have drinks together, right? Of course, after so many years. But here today, I just want to encourage all of you. Sometimes it's not easy to say no to your friends, to your classmates, sometimes even to your family. And during the Chinese New Year, a lot of our Christian young people, especially youth, some of them they came from a Buddhist background. So during Chinese New Year, they must go to temple. They must have this incense. Sometimes it's very difficult for them to say no to their parents. Why? Because this is not a good thing. That means you are not listening and obeying your parents. Because in Chinese culture, obeying your parents is very, very important. So how do we deal with this kind of situation? And we're going to learn from the book of Daniel. First of all, we want to congratulate that we have already finished the book of Hebrews. Now we go to the Old Testament and we're going to study the book of Daniel. Now before I go into the book of Daniel, of course, today's theme is be strong and courageous even if you face the same situation. Okay? You know, I just want to a short introduction of the book of Daniel. Now, the book of Daniel, we only remember one thing, Daniel and the lion. Right? Daniel in the lion's den. That's the only thing that we remember. But if you study carefully, actually the whole book is pointing towards one thing. Right? One thing only, that is the sovereignty of God in all things. That means that God is in control. Now, He is sovereign over big things like international power, if you study in the book of Daniel. And He also sovereign over small things like the insignificant life of young people. Now, here, if you look at here, God is sovereign over history, and God is also sovereign over the future. Now, this is the main theme in the book of Daniel. Not just the lion in Daniel in a lion's den, but we are talking that we have a God that is sovereign over everything. Now, in this book, it's divided into two parts. The first 6 chapters is focused on the man of Daniel. And the second part, from chapter 7 to chapter 12, reveal the prophecy, the message. Now, of course, throughout the whole book of Daniel, the central figure in both sessions is Daniel. We won't get away from Daniel. Now, the content of the book was written between 605 BC through 539 BC, 500 years before Jesus came. Now, Daniel encouraged God's people to trust God's providence and to remain faithful no matter what happens. Daniel message. He continued to encourage all of us until today that we should continue to trust God's providence and remain faithful no matter what happens, since the Lord is in complete control. Now, what I want to say complete control is that if you look at the first chapter, God may sovereignly send you to a difficult place to spread His name among others. Now, the whole book of Daniel, if you look at it, yes, of course, because the Israelites sinned against God, God sent Babylon come over and take over the whole country because of the sin. But if you look at here, the whole point is that God actually sent all of them to Babylon. Now, if you look at here, of course, you see that war, battle, everything was a tragic. Right? Land destroyed, property destroyed, and confiscated. And prisoner of war was taken captive and sent away to foreign lands, never to see family and friends again. Now, this is what happened to Daniel and his friends. Right? This is what happened to Daniel and his friends. They were uprooted and replanted in the harsh and wicked soil of the Babylon Empire. And surprisingly, everything that happened, it was God's doing and it was God's plan. Why? Because God works in spite of the sin of the people. Next. Right? God works in spite of His sin of His people. You know, Judah had been in a political and spiritual decline for a period of time. During the reign of Jehoiakim, one of Judah's worst king, who was nothing like his godly father Josiah, Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon attacked Jerusalem in 605 BC, before Christ. Now this happened because what? In verse 2, and the Lord delivered Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his land. It is God doing. It is God work. Now, why God deliver this king into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar? Because of their sin. Now, if you look at it here, in the process, God is still working. God is still working in spite of his people's sin against God. Why? Because through the whole incident, his presence is extending among the nation. Do you see the similarity to Acts chapter 8? Acts chapter 8, when persecution came to Jerusalem, what happened to the Christian in Jerusalem? They all spread out. That is why the second thing that happened here is that God works as he scatters his people. And sometimes we think that, oh, come on, why all this persecution happen and cause the whole church to crumble and the people escape from this town? But if you look at here, God works and he scatters his people. Now, if you look at the history of Israelites, the Judah, there were 3 deportations from Israel to Babylon. Now, Israel were oppressed and her people were scattered. But throughout the whole incident, the nation have a witness among them to the one true and living God. It is the only way that to show the other nation that here we have a one true God. Maybe the Babylonian says, oh, come on, our God is stronger than you. But Daniel say, not so. All these things happen because of God's work. So in other words, sometimes in life, God may send you to a very difficult place just to spread his name. Just to be a witness and testimony to others that you have a living God. So today I just want to share with you that we want to be strong and courageous. How? 3 things that I want to share to you is that first, be prepared. Second, you have to determine early. The third one is to trust God. Now, first one, be prepared for the challenges ahead. Now we all, if you look at here, when Daniel and his friend was in Babylon, and they were in a foreign country, I believe that when they were taken from Israel, they were a young man. A young man. Now, in a foreign country, whereby he are not allowed to worship his own God, so what did he do is that Daniel and his friends has been prepared for a situation like that. Now, what do I mean is that here, now, you see, each of us, we all have this thing called a worldview. Worldview. W-O-R-L-D-V-I-E-L. Now, what is worldview? Worldview is a particular way of looking at and seeing life and the world in which we live. Right? Our perception about this world, our perception about our life, and our perception about our value. Everything is related to your worldview. Now, this worldview is going to shape both the way we think and the way we live. Now, I give you an example. There was a Christian, okay, he accepted Christ when he was young. Now, when he get married and have a wife, when the wife's sick, actually this Christian was brought up in a kampong, okay? He was taught about the traditional way of worshiping spirit, the traditional way of healing, the traditional way of seeing a doctor. So even though he was converted to be a Christian at a very, maybe in his teen or youth age, okay? But he was taught about all these traditional things when he was younger. You know, when you're in a kampong, maybe most of you stay with your grandpa and grandma, and your grandpa and grandma will always talk to you about traditional, talk to you about spirit, talk to you about a lot of things. Now, if you ask me about my knowledge about Chinese New Year, I learned it not from Wikipedia, not from Google, I learned it from my grandmother. Right? Chinese New Year, what you have to wear, and what you need to do, and what you don't have to do. Everything comes from my grandmother. So when this youth, when he grown older, when he became a young adult, he get married with a wife, they were worshiping in the church faithfully every Sunday. Now, and then one day, his wife fall ill. Now, when his wife fall ill, the first thing that he did, he didn't go and see doctor. The second thing, he didn't go and pray to God. You know what is the first thing that he did? He brought his wife to go and see a bomoh. He's been worshiping in the church for many, many years as a young man until he get married. But why, when his wife fell sick, he brought his wife to a bomoh? Because this is his worldview about sickness. Why some of the Christians are not transformed in their mind, it is because of what they perceive in this world. The one reason why many of the Christians still believe that we have to work for our salvation. We have to be good, we have to be kind in order for us to be saved. No. Everything was taught when we are young. And this is our worldview. So the first thing that, if you become a Christian, the first thing that you have to pray for yourself is to change your worldview. The worldview can be changed. Now, what happened to Daniel and his friend was that they were prepared for the challenges. Now, there are 4 things that happened to Daniel and his friend. Why? Because the Babylonian is trying to change their mind, to change their worldview. In other words, it's brainwashing. How? The first thing that the Babylonian did is isolation. Isolation. Why isolation? In verse 3, here it says, then the king ordered Aspenaz, chief of his court official, to bring into the king's service some of the Israelites from the royal family and the nobility. First of all, isolation. Isolate you from the other group of Christian. For example, so for Daniel and his friend, they were isolated from his family. They were isolated from his community. In other words, they were alone in God, in a king's presence. So, in other words, if you look at here, the evil one, the Satan, they know what are their tactics to change to brainwash your mind, to brainwash your value. So, for example, nowadays, of course, we don't face extreme circumstances like Daniel and his friends. But if you look at today, many of our young people who left their home, who left their family to go to another place, maybe in KK, in KL, or in other place for study. So during that time, you were all isolated from your friends. And how many of your friends are still going to the church? Maybe they are still faithful. Maybe they are not. Isolation. The first step that the Babylonian did is to isolate you. Today, we are isolating ourselves. Once we are out of this Christian community, you are all by yourself. Now, during this time, it is easy for the Satan or the evil one to take control of you. You know, one of the things that happened to one of the Chinese student who were confirmed here at CityCare, when she went back to China. You know, China is a communist country, and most of his friends, 99% of her friends are communists. They don't believe in religion. Religion is just part of your life. You can have it, or you can just you throw it away. It's not important. So, but he got mixed up with these friend, whereby this friend is from the church, the world of church, or the church of world. You know the one next to Wan Sulaman? The Church of God. And it's from Korean. And it's a cult. And she believed that this is the Christian community that she wants to belong. So she joined. And what happened after she joined? I lost contact with her. I can't even communicate with her. And she was brainwashed by the pastor of this church. Why? Isolation. Now, after isolate you, what happened? The next thing is indoctrination. Now, indoctrination, in verse 4, you see here, young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. Just like today, Korean oppa. Now, then what happened to this group of people? He was to teach them the language and literature of the Babylonians. In other words, they are brainwashing them with all this new knowledge. You know, the University of Babylon would give them a first-class secular education in Babylonian language, philosophy, literature, science, history, astrology, and also religion. Why? Because everything is to change your value. Indoctrination. This is why when you go to YouTube, don't just believe and trust everything that is shown in YouTube, Facebook, social media. Now, what happened after indoctrination? The third one is assimilation. Assimilation, whereby here is to convert this follower of God into Babylonian. Now in verse 5, what happened? The king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table. They were to be trained for 3 years. 3 years. And after that, they were to enter the king's service. If you stay in a place for 1 day, okay lah. After that, you still go back to your old habit. If you stay in a place for 1 month, still okay lah. After that, you come back, you still you. But if you stay there for 3 years, everything will mix into their culture, their belief, their worldview. Everything will change. Here, you know, of course, the main focus here is to change the Hebrews' lifestyle. Assimilation. And then the last one, how they did it is by confusion. Now, why? The last part is that here in verse 6 to 7, among those who were chosen, okay, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Now, what happened here is that they gave them a new name. They gave them a new name. Next one, Daniel, the new name will be Belteshazzar. Hananiah, Shadrach. Mishael, Meshach. Azariah, Abednego. Mexican name, Abednego, Mesca. Mexican name. Now, changing them today is not a big deal, right? Because sometimes you have your real name. For me is Eric Fong. So my nickname in Facebook, Z. Why Z? I also don't know. I have a lot of nicknames. Z, De Silva, all kinds of names. Today, if you change the name, it's not a big deal. Some even you know, their real name is, for example, Peter. But their social media account, you know what name? I also don't know how to spell the name. Okay? We got a lot of kind of name. But in an ancient world, it was a huge thing when you change a name. So they don't simply change the name. It just like it went to the identity and core of a person Right? Because once a name is changed, that means your identity is changed. Now, what is the meaning of this new name in Babylonian terms? We are not sure. I don't know. But one thing is certain is that all this name is in a way to honor Babylonian gods. They confuse them. 4 things. Once you go into a place whereby you are not known, you are isolated. Of course, the next thing is be careful of what you're learning. Be careful of what you're listening. Because this is to change, to brainwash your value. And then, of course, the third one is you mix up with them. Right? You started to live with the lifestyle. And of course, you are confused at the end whether who are your true God. So the first step is that we have to be prepared. Be prepared for the challenges. It is not new. Now the second one is that we have to determine early in your life and in your heart that you will not compromise. Now Daniel and his friends have been raised and trained by godly parents and grandparents. They love their Lord, their God, with their whole heart, soul, minds, and strength, because it was commanded in the book of Deuteronomy, in the old Jewish culture. They were taught with the word of God since young. Now, so for them, they have been prepared by their parents and spiritual mentor for that particular day. And that is why you can see that they would be good courage and stand strong in the Lord. They stand strong in the Lord. Now, Daniel, if you look at here, there are 3 things that they did. First one, they resist the temptation to defy yourself. Now, Daniel determined, begin in verse 8, the immersion into the worldview of pagan Babylon would not win his heart or his mind. Babylon is where he would live, but Babylon would never be his home. Some churches, they have this slogan, welcome home. Have you been to a church that, welcome home, this is our home, right? But for me, the church is not yet a home in God's kingdom. If you watch war movie, you know war movie, right? Church is just an outpost. We are still in this world. We are not yet home. What the soldier want is that one day they can get home to their family. And what we want is not just to come to this church every Sunday, but our desire is to go back to our real home. Okay? So the reason Daniel look at all the food, why is defiling them? I don't know. If you study Paul may say that, it's still okay. Except that if you don't make other people fall. So he resists the temptation. The second one, he wins the favor of those in authority when possible. Now sometimes if you look at here in verse 9 to verse 10, now God has caused the official to show favor and compassion to Daniel. Now it is not wrong for us to win favor of other people, especially non-Christian. Okay? But you have to be wise. You have to know when to win the favor. We don't go and fight with people. We don't go and argue with people. We don't go and debate with people. But we, whenever possible, win the favor of people. It's not that I compromise my faith, but I sort it out together with you. Okay? And the last one is that Daniel wisely offered alternative solutions that are win-win. Now in verse 12, it says here, please test your servant for 10 days, give us nothing but vegetable to eat, and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servants in accordance with what you see. Now, of course, the first thing that comes to my mind is that, wow, Daniel is testing God. No, it's not testing God. It's actually, if you look at here, Daniel believed and trust God to honor their conviction and commitment for obeying His word. Because in a later chapter, you will see that when his friend was thrown into the fire furnace, you know what they said to the king? Even if God don't save us, we still believe and trust in this God. So when Daniel offered this alternative, win-win. Okay, we don't fight back. We don't be arrogant or rude, but we just find a way. Find a way that we don't compromise our faith. We don't compromise our faith. I still believe in God. I just trust God. I still know that this is wrong, but let us do something else that it will not compromise my faith. So that is what happened to Daniel. Of course, this is not step 1, step 2, step 3 you have to follow. But at least you have to determine in our life early that we don't compromise when we face in this kind of situation. Continue to trust God. That is why it brought us to the last point, to trust God, to honor your devotion and faithfulness to Him. Now, what happened after that? Of course, if you read the story, they became what? In verse 14, the appearance of young men with royal food, you see that those who eat the royal food are getting weaker and weaker. But these 4 young men, he ate, and when they drink and vegetable, you see, they are growing. Okay? They are not getting weaker and weaker. Right? Imagine you just eat vegetable for 10 days. If you tell my grandma must make sure that every meal must have meat. If you don't have meat, you get hungry, you get weak. You must eat meat. That's my grandma diet. Now, if you look at here, God honored them. First, God blessed them physically. After 10 days, the test was a success, and God blessed them and rewarded them to their devotion. And Daniel and his friend, God honored them by giving them favor with the God and a healthy bodies, physically. Then God blessed them mentally. In here, God gave the 4 youth knowledge and understanding in every kind of literature and wisdom in verse 20. And you can see that these 4 were the Proverbs men with the ability to see things of life and this world from God's perspective and to act accordingly. And the third one, God blessed them spiritually. God specifically blessed Daniel spiritually by giving him understanding in vision and dreams of every kind. You know, this gift from God would be extremely valuable in chapter 2 and beyond. In that time, the culture, you know, have you ever go and interpret your dream before? Have you ever go and ask somebody else to interpret your dream? Some people did. In Chinese culture, they have. They go to Bomo. You know, when I was young, I always go and meet up with Bomo. So I know how they do things. They will, I don't know what they're saying now. They will take up their hands, their eyes will blind, and then they will write things. I don't know how they see now. And then they will always deal with this red color ink. They say it's from chicken blood, but I look at it, it's from red ink only. You know, there are ways for us to interpret dreams. Now, as a Christian, I also saw a lot of Christians, they go to the pastor and clergy and ask for the pastor and clergy to interpret their dreams. Interpret their dreams. In those ancient times, dreams are very, very important. If you still remember the story of Joseph. Joseph, when he interpreted the dreams for the Pharaoh, the first 7 years, it will be blessed. The next 7 years, it will be disasters. Dreams are very important. Today, there are people still believe in dreams. Of course, I don't know how to interpret dreams, so don't waste time come and look for me. I don't know how to interpret dreams. If you dream of zombie, maybe there will be apocalypse. I don't know. I've been watching Last of Us for the last 2 days. Now my mind is full of apocalypse, kind of end of time, end of world. And every night I pray to God, God, don't come so fast. I was so immersed in the movie already. So I have to come back to reality. So God bless them spiritually. Daniel can interpret dreams and vision. And of course, lastly is God bless them socially. You know, after the 3 years of education, the 4 Hebrews are brought by the chief of eunuch to stand before the king. They stood head and shoulder above all the rest. No one was found equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, and therefore they began to attend the king. You see, trust God. Trust God whenever you face in this kind of challenges. In this new year, in this time, I just want to share with you what am I going to do for the next 2 years in Christ King. Now, after pandemic, there are a lot of churches that are recovering from the pandemic. But here, from the story of Daniel, I just want to challenge all of us, including myself, to reach out this year. Okay? So, I won't have a theme for a year of reaching out or year of anything. We're still in a decade of evangelism and discipleship. And one of the things about evangelism is go to the world. So today, this year, I just want to share with you that I'm still working out the planning. And hopefully these few days, these 2 weeks, I'm going to settle everything. This year, I want to focus on reaching out. The first thing that I want to do during this year is starting from February onwards until May, I'm going to talk to you personally and hoping that we can go and visit some houses, visitation. Yeah, we will go and visit house visitation. You know, last Christmas, when I sent out the Christmas blessing drive-through, it's actually to test the water, okay? Just to go out and send out the gift pack to your friends or your relative or anybody. Okay? So starting the first round of house visitation will be from February to May. Okay? I will talk to you personally to ask for prospect, to ask for anybody that we can go and visit, and then we will go and visit them. And that's the first round. The second round is after July, August until end of year, whereby we will go back for the second visit and hopefully to invite them for Christmas this year. Yeah? That's my planning. I don't want to add a lot of things to do. I just want all of us to focus on one thing, is that to reach out. Okay? Of course, this year I also try to train some of us to run the new Alpha series. The new Alpha series video, we will not do it in a big group, but we will do it in a smaller group. Right? At home or at church, in a smaller group, whereby a family with one family, or the young adult with a few young adults, student with student. These are the two things that I want to focus this year. Yeah, of course, the rest we will go on as we do. Okay, like all the celebration, confirmation service, everything will go on like normal. But this year, I just want to focus on, this year and next year, I want to focus on these two things, the Alpha and also the house visitation. We will reach out and hopefully we can bring some people to church. Okay? That's why I preach the book of Daniel. Reaching out, facing challenges. Because frankly speaking, before I work in a church, I have a lot of non-Christian friends. It's easy for me to deal with them, to get to know them. Every day I have new friends. But after I work in the church and being transferred from Tasanagan to Tawau, Tawau to KK, KK and Tawau, Tawau and KK, my non-Christian friends is getting smaller and smaller. I don't get a lot of opportunity to go and get to know a lot of new non-Christian friends. So I really have to depend on all of you to work together. That's why for the house visitation, the first round, we will go and visit together with you to visit some of your friends. Okay? If you look at here, Daniel and his 3 companions remained faithful to their identity. They obeyed God and were sharing testimony and witness both to God's providence and to his grace. And God sent them on a missionary journey. If you look at from another perspective, God sent Daniel and his friend to a missionary journey, making them leave all that was familiar so that they might bear a faithful and true witness to king and nation in foreign lands. I also pray that this year we all will be sent by God to reach out to strangers, to non-believers, and to be a witness and to bring them to God. Let us pray.